All right, welcome everybody to Mike's movie podcast featuring Evan with special guests Adam and Shane. And today we have a change in programming. We will be discussing The Lighthouse.
Which
Evan,
as we
I thought it was Mike's movie podcast. Why does Evan get to call the shots about what we cover?
well, this is a whole discussion we're going to have. So
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, well, I want to say thank you first, Mike, for putting my name in the title when you mentioned the title of the show in your introduction. I'm glad to be back. There was a brief point there where it looked like I might be on the outs with the team here, and fortunately, I was allowed to return.
Well, there actually is a relationship between why you are allowed to return, why you got your original billing and title back, and why we are reviewing this particular movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
Do you know why that is? Do you know
Well,
why that's, Evan?
my assumption would be that I took the initiative, and as you guys know, I went and I watched a movie without even any suggestions. I didn't even read the top 50 movie reviews of the year, which I usually do when I'm selecting movies. But yeah, I think about 10 days ago, I watched a movie called The Lighthouse, and I thought, you know what? I know a couple of guys who might like to talk to me about this movie. And so I suggested it to Adam and Mike, and wouldn't you know it, Adam, in true form.
Read the text.
Let's just read the text and see. So we always have a text exchange to set up these little shows that we do.
Listen, this text thread is confidential, and you do not have my permission to read them.
You can read mine. But you don't have to read it.
Right.
I'm
I'll be reading the text thread, omitting anything that Mike has said in the text thread. All right. Boy, there's a lot. A lot of texts. All right. Okay. A lot of gifts in this text exchange as well.
Yeah, you just describe those to the best of your ability.
Okay. Wednesday, 6:47 p.m. Eastern Time. I said to Mike and Adam, "Hello, men. I watched The Lighthouse the other night and thought it would make good podcast material. Though, to be fair, the actual lighthouse looked much heavier than the title let on. So be
We're
warned."
not even going to get into that. That's too big a topic.
That is deep.
Yeah.
Mike immediately responded, "False advertising." There was a scene in there where it looked like they were about to have premarital intercourse. Of course, they refers to the two watchmen.
You're fired, Shane. Get that shit off.
Excuse me.
Uh-oh.
Man,
Dr. Verway's got a call. What could be more important than this?
Every time anything happens on his phone.
there you go.
So Mike referring to the actors Willem DeFoe and Robert Pattinson. And I want to talk about those two, the dynamic between, of course.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I think that's why it's rated R. Plus, there's mermaid intercourse. Spoiler,
Yes.
sorry, there is a mermaid.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is much self-gratification that occurs too within this film.
One thing at a time.
Self-pleasure.
It's still not even done reading the texts.
Okay.
All right, okay, I'll let you.
This is where the text thread gets spicy. And I anticipated this. Adam responds, "Man, I wish you weren't always so goddamn behind. I saw that movie when it was in theaters like 5 years ago. And again, when it came out on video like 4 years ago, it came out 2 years ago, and would have been ecstatic to enthusiastically discuss back when everyone else on earth was talking about it. But I guess I can open up my dusty old scrapbook of ancient memories to talk about it." Evan says, yeah. Hey, look, I watched a movie, all right? Shouldn't that be enough? And here we go with a sequence of, yeah, you're right. Here's your medal and trophy, lots of images of trophies, standing ovations, applause. Oh my God, Evan, your fans broke through the barrier and they're so excited you watched the movie. What, lots of just, big audiences. I can go on and on. So there was some fun had at my expense.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, you're the one who is gung-ho about Down Periscope and McHale's Navy. What made you watch Lighthouse prior to those?
Oh, Uh, that's a good question. So
I guess maybe this is just part of a nautical theme you're doing.
no, not at all. So actually, I have a friend in Chicago, and occasionally we will co-watch a movie, just for pandemic, whatever. And we were flicking through. We were just like, all right, what's free on Prime? Because that's what we have. And so we're just looking at what's free, and we did the whole thing where like nobody can pick. So my solution to that, I don't know if you guys have ever played this game or used this technique, but one person picks 3 alternatives and the other has to choose one from the 3. So I chose 3 alternatives: the Lighthouse, some pinball documentary, and I can't remember the third one. And she picked it. So we watched it in its entirety, and we texted back and forth the entire time, which was a lot of fun because there, as you guys have known for years, I guess, there are a lot of really noteworthy scenes. It's hilarious.
What I'm hearing is you found the other person on Earth who hadn't already seen the Lighthouse, and then you texted rather than pay attention the whole time.
Oh, no, you misunderstand. So most people don't watch as many movies as you do. It's not even close, actually. In fact, I'm probably closer to average. Folks, Adam watches 3 movies a day. It's his life. So when he like sends these texts like it's insane that I have watched a movie that's 3 years old, this is coming from a place of somebody, his sole, mission in life is to see every movie 10 times and know everything about it.
I will say that is true. However, a movie like The Lighthouse was critically acclaimed and had a very strong word of mouth around the time of its release.
I won't lie. I am the extreme opposite.
Options is irregular.
This is one of the reasons why the podcast works, because, Adam's a movie buff. I rarely watch movies, and when I do, it's in a very sort of, superficial way, right? I'll pretty much watch anything, but I don't, make an effort. So anyway, I'm feeling like I want to hear more from Mike and Shane.
Yeah, me and Evan are going to take a break. Mike and Shane can get things going.
Okay. What? I will add
Mike's movie podcast.
Shane, it's all you, Shane.
Okay. I'm more auditing this. As I said, I'm not familiar with the podcasting format, but I watched it again last night.
Shane's never heard a podcast. This
never
is
done
my first exposure.
Yeah, I'm not only not listening to this podcast, but any podcast.
Wow, that makes me feel better.
But I liked it. I saw it 10 years ago with everyone else, but
is it 10 or 20? I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. But I watched it again last night and was surprised by what I didn't remember. The mermaid sex being one of those things. But I don't know. Where do you start?
It's literally 14 months old. It was released in October of 2019. So yeah. Go ahead. Just stick it up your ass.
I will note that. So the Lighthouse, this movie is actually like A Star Is Born. This is actually the 4th remake of it. It was originally made in the 1930s, and they've just been remaking it periodically over time. So I think that's what Adam was referring to.
Is this real Wikipedia data, or are you counterfeiting here?
No, Mike is having a goof and a spoof, and he's doing a good job.
Yes, and I'm using myself quite well. So let me tell you about how I watched this movie. I watched this movie with closed caption on because when I saw it in the theater,
like everyone besides Evan.
Yeah, exactly. Because the buzz when this movie came out was just overwhelming. So I was like, I just gotta drop what I'm doing right now and go down to the multiplex and watch.
Where did you go? What theater?
So this one, it was the this one I saw it at the that was the Regal Meridian downtown Seattle where I saw that one. And typically, this is one that I would like to see it at the Egyptian or SIF Uptown. If I remember correctly at the time, I think that this was the only theater that was showing it in Seattle.
Huh, interesting. That's surprising.
At the time, I think that was it. I'm going to have to go through my archives. So that would have been one of the reasons why I would have made that particular decision. But if possible, I'll try to go to we did one of the different theaters to see it.
Let's cut straight to the chase. I want to hear from everybody. Did this movie make you horny?
It made me remember being horny. I don't think it made me actively horny during the movie, but it's definitely about being horny.
So the person who I was watching it with and texting with, who I won't mention by name on the podcast to protect her, that was a big part of our exchange was, you know, the masturbation scenes are kind of a turn on, right? Especially when the mermaid fantasies are.
Maybe this woman is flirting with you and you're misunderstanding. She's like trying to actually have a conversation and you're assuming it's actually about the movie.
It's not that kind of, it's not what beyond flirting. It's just like she in good form will take any opportunity to discuss masturbation, which is, you know, why we're friends.
Are you referring to us?
Yeah.
The movie, it's very, very sexy, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I would say that this movie was about as erotic as Crash.
Sure. Similar.
Yeah.
Do you mean the Matt Dillon, Don Cheadle favorite?
No, I mean, of course, I'm talking about our good friend, Mr. Cronenberg.
You know, I actually haven't seen that Crash. I've only seen the preview.
Yeah.
As a kid, which is just as good.
Well, French import 4K disc that you can order online.
Laserdisc?
For 4K, for your 4K TV.
Is it 4K dollars?
No, I think, well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you get it direct from France, it probably costs a lot with shipping, but.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, lots to talk about with this movie. I mean, you know, sort of in a more basic bonus sense. I don't, you know, okay, look, I know everybody's getting excited about Robert Pattinson, and I just want to make it clear right now, I am totally not sold. I am not sold.
Even after this.
Yeah, after the Lighthouse.
I didn't. So I don't think he's that good. I'm sorry. He's and maybe it's because he's you know, right there with Willem Dafoe, who is one of my favorites. And it just sort of seems like it's like, you know, it's like Steve Vai, you know, playing guitar on stage with like an 85-year-old Joe Perry with one arm, you know, like it's yeah, I mean, okay, they're both up there, they're both guitar players, but like Willem Dafoe is a virtuoso.
The greatness of William Dafoe doesn't mean that, I mean, just because William Dafoe is the best doesn't mean that Robert Pattinson is not good. I also have never liked him, but it was this and whatever the Claire Denis space movie were the ones that made me think. I can't remember what the movie's called. I'm gonna look it up.
Well, I'll be honest, I haven't seen
grudgingly considered him good.
I think the one other movie I saw him in was one of the Twilights, which I don't remember why or where I was watching that, but
probably because it made you horny.
no, that stuff doesn't do it for me. I need like the Dirty Sailor foreskin and you know, latrine cleaning.
Foreskin?
There was you know, the foreskin can be kind of that's an exciting idea because it's just so out there. It's so weird and raunchy and like, you know, taboo. So yeah.
Yeah. So
I just want to circle back. High Life and Good Time are the two other Robert Pattinson movies he's good in my opinion.
Yeah. So actually, and Good Time is what was what shifted my opinion of Robert Pattinson, because I think I had the opinion of like, oh, Robert Pattinson, he's the Twilight guy.
Right.
Then I had a Good Time, and I'm like, no, this guy's an actor. He's good, and I thought he was very good in the Lighthouse as well. I mean, I don't think he was Willem Dafoe good, but I think that he did exactly what he needed to do to work. Because if he was like the Charlton Heston knockoff in Wayne's World 2, the movie wouldn't have worked. But I think he was the real deal.
That's a much better reference than mine.
I will also say High Life prominently features masturbating in case that will get you to watch it.
Okay. So let's talk about old sea shanty, you know, Davy Jones's Locker, Marine Time life.
Yeah, how much time do you think let's all say how much time we've cumulatively spent in our lives on boats. If I had to give my own estimate, conservatively, a few days cumulatively, probably not a whole week, but growing up, there was a fair amount of, I'm including canoes and kayaks, any boat time.
Oh,
Rough estimates.
oh, I have easily spent months on a boat.
Months.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because each year of my life there were car ferry rides across Lake Michigan, so that's a day each.
Oh yeah, including ferries, I'm probably over a week, but I'm certainly not months.
And then I've been on a Carnival cruise, which is yeah. Yeah, which fits my personality. Like if I were if I were a vacation, I'd be a Carnival cruise.
Yeah,
Did you enjoy it, your Carnival cruise?
What's that?
Did you enjoy your Carnival cruise?
It was funny. It was very funny. It was a New Year's cruise. And Nick and I were like 18 and 20. So like we couldn't not notice how weird and funny everything was. But it's just super staged and stock, like like everything is just kind of like, what?
Do they have like a floor show too?
They have shows, yeah. Oh, they have shows.
Ooh.
They have duty-free shopping. They have daycare for the kids, and our husbands can go to the driving range and we can shop. No, there are these like little canned side trips that are super lame that you get off the boat and there's just like, here's what we're doing. We're walking around Jamaica or something. I'm trying to remember what we liked about it. I think we were thrilled with being able to gamble in the casino on the boat because in international waters, I guess you could gamble if you were 18. But we only played the slots.
Yeah.
Anyway, neither here nor there. I'm talking too much.
What's interesting is like, no, what I was going to say is like when you were 20, that was actually around the time that the Lighthouse was released. So you probably could have been on the cruise.
It's true.
So a couple things is that one is that if you want to know more about Carnival Cruises, you can watch Jack and Jill because that movie prominently features that. Also, a movie that we podcasted about previously. What I wanted to talk about was mermaids. So this is talking about like sea time mythology, sailor mythology. Is the idea behind mermaids is like men are out at sea and they have sexual desires and like the mermaids as an entity kind of just like rose from that? Like what is the origin of the mythology of a mermaid? Does anybody know?
Well, you can look it up on Wikipedia. That's a classic.
Good, but
yeah, I'm tempted to pretend.
I'm offended you're implying that they are not real cryptozoological organisms.
Yeah. I can look it up right now. I'll do
that. My heart wants there to be something in the origin of the mythology around like horny, lonely sailors having sex with fish and, like imagining that the fish. Do you think maybe
you
that's
spent months on a boat? How were you? Did you ever get to that level in your cumulative months on boats on the Carnival cruise?
That was another problem with the Carnival cruise is like you're stuck in a room. Like I think Nick and I had our own room, but it's like, the beds are like this. You're right next to each other and there's like very little space. You really couldn't jack off. So, and I don't know how Nick felt about it. I don't think he's as much of a jacker offer as I was, but I know I was.
He's just, less talkative about it than we are.
He's definitely that, but I also think, well, it doesn't matter. I was irritated that he was next to me in the room while I wanted to be thinking about mermaids. So you can keep that. Mike, you always talk about like kind of the latent, the fear of like something slipping out and getting discovered. And, I realized recently how easy it would be for one of my students to find these videos on my YouTube.
I assumed that was you. How could you not be aware of that? When I was hyping this up to Shane to promote his involvement and to make him excited about it, I was like, Evan talks like his students are never going to find this on it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he was literally just mentioning that.
Yeah.
I don't think they will because they don't care enough. Like, so first of all, I have a separate YouTube account and channel for my class that is in no way linked to this account. They'd have to really dig around. I don't think
Young people have their ways. There's facial recognition algorithms. So I'm
right.
excited.
Sure.
Find them in the comment section.
Well, and all that it takes is one error or two where you forget which account you're logged into, and then you post one of these videos on your class.
But you see, I like that risk. I like a little bit of mischief,
Yeah. So So let's.
I saw that look.
I want to know how long you think you've been on a boat, Mike. I want to hear Mike's boat talk.
Yeah. So my boat talk, I think it would probably be close to you, Adam, or about a week. I mean, I've spent some time on boats. I've spent some time on ferries, but it's something that I typically would try to avoid doing because it really, like being on boats. Typically, it really stirs up my agoraphobia. I don't like that there's like no escape when you're on a boat. So that's what I like about land is that you have multiple options of ways of departing. Where if you're on a boat,
I thought agoraphobia was fear of people.
No, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Which one's the fear of people and places?
Look it up on Wikipedia. Classic podcast pastime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think
Yeah, no. Well, agoraphobia. That's like that's not. Well, claustrophobia. It's like enclosed spaces. But I think agoraphobia does. I think have a social element to it. But like social situations that you're not able to get yourself out of.
Anyway, so you guys are deeply deficient in your C word experience.
I mean, I will say, since the Lighthouse is actually mostly on an island, I grew up on an island, and then later in life, again, lived on an island. So I've definitely spent like probably half my life on an island. So that's actually more specifically relevant to the Lighthouse. There's definitely a lighthouse in Grand Isle. I don't know if there is on Vashon, but there's definitely an actual lighthouse on the island I grew up on.
And isn't Willem Dafoe's whole maritime persona a put on anyways in the movie?
Who can say?
Who can say?
Yeah, that's a great thing about the movie. Like you kind of just don't know. It's.
I was waiting for this. There's so much that's ambiguous about this movie, and you can never really tell. And I think that was the filmmaker specifically doing that.
I didn't rewatch it. Why would what's the evidence that it's put on?
He's accused of that by Robert Pattinson.
But what makes Robert Pattinson think that?
Because his stories don't line up.
Oh, yeah.
With like getting scurvy, and he can't. How do you chew on grass without any teeth? Fucking.
Yeah.
How do you chew on grass? Whatever his voice is that he does.
Let's
talk about Robert Pattinson's voice for a minute.
Wait, how does the chewing on grass with no teeth relate to Willem Dafoe having a fake identity?
Because he was telling a story about being like adrift at sea and running out of food, and then the crewmen getting scurvy and their teeth falling out, and then they run into a land, but there was nothing to eat but grass. So they're eating all the grass. And then Robert Pattinson, really drunk later, says, I was wondering, catching him in a lie. How does one eat grass without any teeth?
But they don't develop that so far as to say that like his entire spiel is fake. It's just sort of like that was a tall tale.
Which, I think a drunken old man telling tales is definitely an archetype that he's Willem Dafoe's wheelhouse these days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say too, in terms of the identity, it's like, are they in fact the same person? Are there multiple people there?
You just don't know, And one thing I'll say about this movie is like it made me think.
Yeah. Who's Ephraim? Who's Thomas?
What did it make you think? That's what we're here to talk about.
Well, and it's sort of like you don't even know what you're supposed to think, kind of thing. Where
that's why I'm asking, what did you think? That's why we're here to talk about.
Deep thoughts, deep.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a mysterious.
You're just not gonna say.
What?
Identity.
Bravo. I think they are two separate people. And I think it's just about how when you're in isolation with one other person, you kind of take on aspects of that person's personality, which is, and also I think, what's his name? Guy that made that movie is really laying it on thick with the Criterion Collection references. Because that's the Bergman persona level. But then there's also the Pattinson taking the lumberjack identity, which is, Antonioni's the passenger. He's just really just going down the bucket list.
I also think there's an element of Willem Dafoe trying to drive him mad.
Sure, hazing, man hazing.
Also, probably bilk him out of his share of the money.
Well, drunkenness is a major theme, right? Like the role of alcohol in bringing out this kind of psychosis, and there's this kind of arc of Defoe strongly trying to get Robert Pattinson to vibe with him, and deep resistance to that. It's like Pattinson's like clinging to what he thinks is his, sanity, rationality, and the Willem Dafoe character is like, oh, well, that has no place here. This is a different kind of reality. I don't know.
I mean, Willem Dafoe is definitely the bully, which is why I bet Evan likes this movie. He likes to see a good bully do a good job doing some bullying.
Did you like this character?
The movie is really perfect for me because, in fact, I was chatting about this with my brother, and
which one?
One of my many nicknames / personas is Ahab. Very hard to describe what that means. But you can, if you know the character Ahab, you can get a sense of it. But I go into what my brothers call Ahab mode, and this movie really kind of captures that. It's just this bizarre, hysterical, with lots of things that come up in this movie a lot. Just sort of apparent, like just kind of drunkenness, disorientation, farting, poop, penises, squawking dead birds, masturbation. It had it all. This movie has it all in large doses too. I mean, I make these more superficial observations. I don't know all about all this Criterion bullshit, but there's a movie with Willem Dafoe doing his thing, right? Like this is what he does. If he is a character archetype, like this crazy maniacal, gnarled tooth looking guy. And then there's just all these scenes of this just crazy masturbation and accusations and it's combined with this, Moby Dick type language, which by the way, I couldn't help but think about our Moby Dick.
We sure did. We read that book from cover to cover.
What did you say?
We read that book from cover to cover.
In record time.
We did a podcast about the TV movie version.
We did. I maybe want to watch it again, Mike. Do you have 27 months to read it with me again? Because
I sure do. In fact, I still have the book as well.
We did Moby Dick, and for those of you who haven't seen our earlier work, we did Moby Dick, and Mike and I had a little 2-man book club.
Yeah.
And Mike read it in a reasonable amount of time. It took me like 3 years to read it.
Yeah. And people have asked me too. It's like I've been like, oh yeah, I've read Moby Dick before, and they come to me and they say, so this is like regarded as such a great book. Why is it a great book? And I'm like, I don't know. I genuinely don't know how to answer that question. I would not recognize great literature if the book hit me across the face, apparently.
Why it's a great book makes me think of what Evan was just saying about the Lighthouse, which is the Lighthouse simultaneously has two things going on. One is the stuff Evan likes, which is men being gross and fighting. And then it also has the stuff I was alluding to, the veneer of Criterion Collection, art house aesthetics and themes. So it really has fun for the whole family, which is why I think it was such a crossover success. And I forget the guy's name, the guy that made the movie, guy that made The Witch. I heard an interview with him where he was talking about how, because The Witch was his movie before that, and it's a very serious, stoic movie, that at the premieres, the early screenings of the Lighthouse, because people, and because of the aesthetic, because from the preview and the black and white, old timiness and the sailor language and the witch, people assumed it was also going to be an extremely, bleak, serious thing, and that it's pretty early on that Willem Dafoe farts loudly for the first time.
Yeah.
And that was when he got worried when he was in the audience because no one laughed at the farting. And he was like, oh my God, they think it's serious. And he was then thinking like, how do people, like he was like, and then it was a sociological experiment of like what different people think the appropriate reaction is to a serious fart, which is not what he intended, but how he was like, wow, this is, I hope this catches on. I'm kind of worried. No one's laughing at the farts. Something's not catching. But then later, eventually people, pick up on the tone of the movie, but that it's kind of, that's one I think, I like any movie that like oscillates between tone and genre like this, whether it's a success or not, which I think this movie is a success, but anything like that, I'm always excited that anyone's trying to push those boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well said. I'm glad you agree with my movie choice and that you are happy that
I'm glad you discovered it. I'm glad that you did the work and found this.
After 19 years, I finally found the 2019 movie.
Yeah. Well, so here's some serious movie talk and something that I, on multiple viewings, I don't have a good idea about. Is there's a scene when Willem Dafoe's up there on the Lighthouse, and Robert Pattinson's walking up, and Willem Dafoe is very clearly masturbating to the Lighthouse, and then of course there is some semen which drips down from the ceiling there. That whole scene, that I don't have an explanation for it, and it doesn't really make sense to me.
That's early in the movie too.
Yeah. But what's going on there? I just don't. I don't have any ideas.
I mean, Willem Dafoe.
I assumed that was his semen. I didn't rewatch it like Shane did, so it's been 100 years since I saw it last, but because it's loosely implied that there's some kind of creature, H.P. Lovecraft organism up there, which he is having some kind of sexual relationship with, and that creature, like most Lovecraft creatures, are covered in some kind of protoplasm, and that's what I presume. Maybe a little bit both, but I definitely assume by the volume, because I remember it being a pretty large amount. That is purely Willem Dafoe's ejaculate.
He also seems to have kind of a romantic relationship with the light in the lighthouse.
Absolutely.
And he violently covets it. Like,
oh yeah,
at the end of the movie, I think says she's mine, coming at him with an axe. So he's sort of, I don't know, maybe like metaphorically having sex with a light up there.
Yeah, but kind of to Adam's earlier point, I was a little unclear, and probably it's intended for us to be unclear whether it's the light or the light being on signifies the presence of some sort of Lovecraft octopus being / mermaid. I too thought what Mike thinks was cum dripping down in that scene was something more like fish slime or protoplasm. I wish I could produce that kind of volume.
You have to restrain yourself. You can't jack off as often as you do. You got to wait like a sailor for the whole ship ride out.
Well, I mean, you only have so much capacity, right? To
speak for yourself.
So I guess if you had a third ball, maybe you could.
I don't think it's not even ball specific.
How much?
Volume?
Because as someone with a vasectomy, it's not like disconnecting your testicles stops you from ejaculating. That's like a very small volume of the fluid that comes out when you ejaculate.
Oh, interesting. This is good medical knowledge. Where does the rest of the fluid come from? Where is it stored?
Whatever the fuck else is going on down there.
Well, where?
Still in the,
It seems like you rocked his world a little bit with this revelation.
So did you think that when you get a vasectomy, when you ejaculate, it's just dry heaving, like?
Yeah, a flag comes.
No,
out.
I didn't think that. I guess I just didn't think that.
I forget, when you get a vasectomy, they tell you of an approximate percentage that is a normal reduction in ejaculating, and it's like 5 to 10% or something. It's a very small.
I can't
volume.
abide that. I can't abide that.
But is the fluid still coming from your balls? I guess is what I want to
Fluid
know.
isn't the sperm. The fluid is to get to allow the sperm to move around.
I know that. My question is, where is the fluid stored if not in your balls?
Whatever a seminal vesicle is, I'm not an expert.
Well, you seem to think you are. You have Mr. Vasectomy, PhD.
I mean, if getting a vasectomy makes me an expert, then yes, I'm an expert.
You
But
read the
I
pamphlet.
did not go to school for, testicular fluid production analysis.
I hear they're giving vasectomies at Walmart now.
Yeah, I heard that's what happens when you get the vaccine, which is why I got the vaccine. So I have a double vasectomy.
Oh, did you get yours?
Oh yeah, here, wait, I'll show you my card.
You get both shots?
Not yet.
Not yet. Ah, Lighthouse, baby. I'll tell you what.
Exactly.
Funny, like when I'm tired, I'm just way more careless about my crude dick poop, whatever humor.
This entire discussion is mostly centered around the masturbation in the movie.
I actually feel like we've talked about that less than I anticipated.
Oh yeah.
COVID-19, okay?
Oh, that is.
Come
Hold on a second. It's
That's official.
you gotta.
Yeah, take a screen cap so you can Photoshop it to fake your own
put your name
vaccination.
Thank nerds. Oh wow, that's some good stuff, man.
He's more important than us.
So that's
Yeah.
gotta be nice, just to be walking around knowing that you're gonna be nice and vaccinated, nice and immune.
Maybe.
Yeah. No. So speaking of, we were just mentioning this. Something I've been having occasionally here in the Pacific Northwest, there will be like a weather system or something that will move through, and will go from like a low pressure system, high pressure system. I don't know, but that will like really aggravate my sinuses, and that's happened over the last couple of days. So I am running a bit low on energy, and I think that this podcast has a little bit of a low energy vibe to it, which I think is it's gonna be creating a very specific flavor to this podcast.
We'll fix it in post.
What's that?
We'll fix it in post. When we're in
Yeah,
post,
exactly.
we'll do some editing, add back some.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that the low pressure system affected how much you ejaculate, because that's what we were talking about before.
Yeah. No, but I think that like the semen fluid like is in your prostate, isn't it? Isn't that like that? I think I've like seen a diagram before where it's like the sperm is in the testicles, then you have like the fluid in the prostate, and then they like come together. And
Yeah, like when you mix epoxy.
yeah,
Thank you, Dr. Mike. You're right.
how's
I also
that
agree.
work out?
Mike, I agree. This is an unusually low key podcast. I blame myself for that. I think basically like my level of onness is the bellwether for the quality of the whole show.
Yeah, Evan leads, we all just follow.
Even though I got kicked off the show, which
Yeah.
still
Did you ever listen to that? You never gave us your review of our episode without you.
I'm still preparing my review.
I will say, Mike got us ahead of the curve, because in the new year of 2021, because Johnny and Monic takes place in 2021, everybody can't shut up about Johnny and Monic. Mike and I did a podcast about it weeks ago.
Well, that's why I didn't have it reviewed yet, because I haven't seen Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah.
I gotta watch that. But I only watch one movie a month, so it's a slow process. But
Since you're talking about the Lighthouse, I'm curious, did you see the filmmaker, Robert Eggers, that's his name. Did you see The Witch, the guy's previous movie? And what was your thoughts on that movie?
I have not seen that, unfortunately.
oh man, I love The Witch, but I love that kind of just gross. And it can be done, like I love The Lighthouse because it's got this kind of spastic tongue-in-cheek thing with lots of like amplified cartoonish motifs. That's great, but The Witch is cool because I don't know, I saw an interview with that Eggers guy. They were interviewing him alongside the actress who's now in the Netflix chess show, and
That totally is not why Mike is at a chess now.
That's exactly right. That is a factually correct statement.
Have you watched The Queen's Gambit?
Listen, I play the Vienna game. All right.
What?
I'm not a Queen's Gambit player.
I don't know what. Mike and I played chess.
That's a little chess humor for everybody. Okay.
You know, Mike and I played chess a long time ago. He probably doesn't remember. He taught me how to play, and then we played. Needless to say, I lost, even though I have an incredibly high intellect.
Yeah, I hear that in terms of IQ, you're on the Jordan Peterson plane.
Jordan Peterson, what?
Yeah, the Jordan Peterson plane. I think that Jordan Peterson has like 180 IQ or something. So
it's amazing. It's amazing how many people I've met who claim they or somebody they know has an IQ that's just laughably too high. You ever have that? Like you meet somebody who claims like, oh yeah, my friend, you know, their IQ is 160. It's actually exceptional.
I'm happy to say no, I don't. I must be operating in the correct circles because I have avoided that pretty much.
I'm in the pretentious intelligentsia. Yeah. My circles are pseudo intellectuals with too many degrees and educated far beyond their intelligence. I'm priming. Anyhow, we have digressed multiple times. There have been
I want to go back to talking about The Witch. What Mike, Shane?
I've seen
let's
it,
have Shane. What do you think about comparative? I want to talk comparative because Evan has kind of expressed comparing the two.
I think the language is a good point of comparison because if I remember correctly, The Witch even has a title card at the beginning explaining to the audience why you're idiots and you're not going to understand what these people are saying. But believe me, I did my research. And that wasn't in this one, although, like Mike said, I also watched part of it again with the subtitles on, and I found it was helpful in his.
I imagine.
Yeah, and a lot of, especially Willem Dafoe's like a lot of contractions and everything, words slurring together. I want to listen again to like the ending. There's long monologues as the movie stretches on that are kind of incomprehensible, like when he's getting dirt thrown on his face and he's chewing dirt and giving this very eloquent speech about what the light is to him, and I can only understand like, you know, the portions of it, but
we got to do what Mike did and watch with the subtitles.
I know I watched half of it with subtitles and then I watched the rest of it without on a big
I think what also helped is that when you know, with the subtitles, it's, in addition to the dialogue, they kind of explain like some of the sounds in the background. And I didn't realize that was a foghorn that was going on the entire movie.
What did you think it was? A monster?
No, I'm just kidding. That was a bad joke. I couldn't help myself.
Get some foghorn put in the back of the podcast to kind of help with the low energy.
Yeah.
Growing foghorn.
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting with bated breath for them to just totally blow the top off this movie and just like have Poseidon come out of the sea.
I mean, that's spoilers. The movie Underwater with another co-star of the Twilight movies. That's exactly how that movie ends.
Much less successfully, I think.
I mean, it's a different kind of movie.
Doesn't Willem Dafoe transforms into some sort of seafaring demigod at the end?
Well,
yes, but I'm assuming Evan means like
bursting out.
It's gigantic.
Yeah, sea foam or the horses.
But there was there's a scene though. I can't remember exactly what preceded it when Willem Dafoe is naked and he's like standing in a mighty pose with his.
That's what I think. That's what Shane's talking about, which is a recreation of some Renaissance painting. I don't know, and that's another way he's trying to really lay it on thick with the multi-tiered meta references to classical film and literature.
Yeah. But that was Poseidon though. That was a Poseidon pose, right?
It's a recreation of a famous painting that I don't remember what it is. I think it's William Blake. I can do the annoying thing where I look it up on the internet, but suffice to say, it's a reference to something and I don't remember what.
Okay. But then so something I didn't catch until I read about it afterwards is that the very final scene is a reference to Prometheus.
Yeah, the bird's pecking his liver out.
Birds pecking his liver out. Exactly.
Are you talking about the Alien movie?
Yeah, the Alien movie. Yeah, Prometheus.
The best one in the whole franchise.
Yeah.
Prometheus.
Yeah.
Which has another actor.
Because I wanted to say that I enjoy The Witch. Any movie that brutally kills children, I'm always on for. But I much prefer The Lighthouse because The Witch is doing a good job being like what you expect it to be. And I am much more excited to have a movie do something I don't expect it to do, which is what The Lighthouse did. So between the two, there's a lot of overlap, but I definitely prefer and am more excited about him as a filmmaker because he's going out of his way to, thwart expectations.
Yes, I actually think they're very different kinds of movies. Like, I didn't know that The Lighthouse. I don't even look at the direct. I didn't know The Lighthouse was made by the Witch guy until we started this podcast. And so I, like The Witch. I too loved it for its brutality, especially the scene where the witch is murdering the baby. I just thought that was great. But exactly as you said, like, you knew you were signing up for shit like that when you go to see The Witch.
Yeah.
I had no idea what to expect from The Lighthouse because, and this is where my complete, like, what's the word, dilettante nature comes in handy, is that I look at The Lighthouse, I see it has Willem Dafoe. I'm like, okay, I'll watch this. I like him. And it's billed as a horror. I go, oh, spooky. It's going to be spooky. And put it on. Complete surprise. Pleasant surprise. It's just a big confetti fun blast of little things that I like. And so, so we were texting, my friend who was texting with me while we were watching, made a reference to, I guess Willem Dafoe is known for a large penis.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right. And it occurred to me, I've seen most of his movies. I remember seeing
that is patently false. I bet you haven't seen half his movies. He's been in a lot of movies.
Yeah, I've seen them all, man. I've seen them.
Sidebar, this is the painting that's being referenced. It's called Hypnos by someone named Sasha Snyder.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's Sasha Snyder.
Got it. Good
Anyway.
find there. Well, yeah. I mean, Willem Dafoe's been a lot. I mean, of course, we've all seen Spider-Man. We've all seen
What
that.
made me think of another Willem Dafoe movie where you see half of his penis, maybe it's his penis, that Mike and I watched together, called The Antichrist by Lars von Trier.
Yeah. Well, was that? I don't know about. I know the specific scene that you are referencing, and then about the shower sex scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which.
I mean, the scene when he's having sex in the shower, that's not him. They had.
Right.
They
So that's why I brought this up, because I'm like, where can I see this?
I'm pretty sure, for sure, you see him naked in The Loveless, which is like a biker movie by Catherine Bigelow, pre-famed Catherine Bigelow. I'm pretty sure you see him naked in To Live and Die in L.A. I don't know.
Boondock Saints?
Huh?
Yeah. Boondock Saints.
Dogs?
Yeah, I think he was also in Boondock Saints too, All Saints Day. So,
is that the sequel to Boondock Saints?
Sure is.
Mike wanted to review Terminator Genesis.
No, I didn't want to. Well, actually, I do want to review it eventually, but I did finally watch that movie, and I don't think it was as good as Terminator 2.
Enough said.
Mike, I want to make a very controversial statement here.
Okay, what's that?
So when you and I were in high school and college, T2 was my favorite movie, unequivocally,
okay.
Right? Maybe favorite sci-fi. Batman was my favorite normal movie. Okay. Like that. However, I will say that in my 30s, the trajectory of favoriteness between T and T2 has converged. And I'm actually, I almost feel like Terminator might usurp T2 because I really like that movie.
Well, yeah. So let's say this. I know when Evan and I are doing Mike's movie podcast featuring Evan, no special guests or anything. A a common bit of criticism that we receive is that we agree on everything. And you prefaced this by saying this was a controversial comment. Well, let me tell you, I actually agree with everything that you said.
I knew it. I had a feeling you would.
Well, no, I appreciate I appreciate the Terminator more and more with each passing year. And yeah, there's certain elements of it that are lacking in the not lacking, but not present in the second one, and that is like that like synth soundtrack for one. The Terminator, I think, is the superior of the two soundtracks. Although the second one is terrific.
Yes, well, you know, it's like I don't. It's a different kind of movie. First of all, Terminator has more horror movie elements than I like. It's older and grittier. It's more low budge. It's got better, like, I mean, it's just got more like kind of tongue-in-cheek animatronic elements that I like too. And I agree with you about the music. Adam, is it the same guy who does both soundtracks?
Red Fidel, yes. They're kind of doing a Halloween 2, where the second one, they're just like, okay, the same, but we'll just do more on top of it. I would say Terminator, like you're saying, I think James Cameron went out of his way to subvert, you know, to not just try and do more of the same with Terminator, because Terminator 2 is just like a full-on action movie and is much more grandiose and operatic, whereas like the first one is just pure minimal, you know, horror suspense with sci-fi elements. So I mean, I think that I am not one for rankings. I think they both have their own merits. And I'm more interested to talk about your other normal favorite movie, Batman, because we recently, for Christmas, rewatched Batman Returns, which I think to be the best of the Batman movies. Yeah, far superior to the first one.
It's very good. I mean, like, Batman Returns touched me in a very special way. It was a sexual awakening for me at age 7. And B, I themed my entire 7th birthday party after Batman Returns.
But then previously you just said that Batman was your favorite normal movie, as if Batman Returns was inferior.
Yes. No, I still say Batman is the better movie. And the reason I say that is because Jack Nicholson. I don't have to say anything else. That Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson is Danny DeVito plus Michelle Pfeiffer?
Yes, hands down. That Jack Nicholson, I mean, that might be my favorite performance of an actor in a movie. I'm not kidding.
I mean, it's great. I don't deny that it's great. I just feel like you're getting more bang for your buck with Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer. I would say Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer, possibly best Michelle Pfeiffer.
Well, what I'm saying is I have a special personal attachment to that Jack Nicholson Joker and that performance. And I've modeled my personality somewhat after that performance. And I can't say anything like that about Batman Returns, except that it's an amazing movie. It's just incredible. Best movie of that year, hands down. But I'm a big Batman.
In general, for movies like that turn into franchises with sequels, oftentimes the first one, which does the kind of table setting, establishing, you know, all the character rules, those never are my favorites for additional viewing. I was just talking about it with Mike in the Predator 2 podcast, that like Predator, the first one, is pure, you know, just there's absolute perfect movie. I just don't enjoy rewatching it as much as Predator 2 because there's just so much more razzmatazz in Predator. It's the same way I feel about Batman Returns.
That's true. I actually have the exact opposite opinion of you. I don't like the razzmatazz. Like, Predator is a perfect example. Like, Predator 2 is the bigger, splashier, gorier razzmatazz one, but I would rather watch Predator 1 all day.
But here's the thing. How many times have you actually done that? How many times have you rewatched either? Because as we've established, I watch more movies than you, so this might be an issue of number of viewings.
You definitely watch more movies than me. However, there are certain movies that I've seen many, many, many times. I've probably watched the first Batman upwards of 100 times, and I've probably seen Batman Returns 20 times, maybe 30. Predator 2 I've actually only seen once or twice, and I've watched Predator like 20 or 30 times.
Okay.
So, and I don't really have a lot of, I want to watch Predator 2 again before I listen to your show where you fired me, but I don't typically gravitate toward it. Like, if I'm in the mood, I'll watch Predator. I also like classic Arnold. I like my Coca-Cola. I like Michael Jordan, Jack Nicholson, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I like what everybody else likes. I like a steak, medium rare. I like an American cheeseburger,
What's a non-American cheeseburger?
a French cheeseburger.
And what is on that?
Has anybody ever seen this this Pulp Fiction movie where they talk about the royal with cheese?
I heard about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard it.
I
Had,
will tell you, the first time I went to France, I went to a McDonald's just to order a Royale with cheese, and I still have the receipt somewhere.
was it good?
It was exactly the same as America. That's the beauty of corporate global takeover. The homage.
Now, Adam, I'm gonna have to do some Adam Higgins contrarian this year. So I've eaten at McDonald's all over the world, and they are very different. Especially when I went to.
They have entirely different menus. But you're telling me you think if you get a Big Mac in different ones, you can detect the difference in the Big Mac?
I can't say from experience. I just know.
Because yes, they are definitely have radically different menus with totally different items. But if you get the core essential items, I think they go out of their way to make sure that's consistent, separate from the changing menus and the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is. I believe that is correct. I do think though that high fructose corn syrup is banned in the European Union.
This is true.
Did they put that in a Big Mac?
Well, they do not, but I know that a big appeal for so another thing that I know is true is that the water filtration systems that McDonald's has are like space age technology. So like if people say I go to McDonald's because the Coke tastes better, then like they're actually like correct because of the filtration system. I know that that's true. I read it somewhere and I've heard it, but I know that they spend like lots and lots of money on those to get the.
I read that too. They filter it 9 times.
Yeah, I will also say on the high fructose corn syrup side of things that we have a distant relative who loves Dr. Pepper, but like the American Dr. Pepper, because it tastes a little bit different. So.
It's sweeter. The corn syrup shit is sweeter than cane sugar.
Let's just have. I want to make a quick abrupt detour back to the Lighthouse.
Oh yeah, the Lighthouse.
And that is that again. I had a much better segue for this when we weren't recording, but the whole lobster monologue, that whole scene there, I just want to say that was iconic, and I enjoyed it. And if you liked nothing else about the movie, I think that the existence of that particular scene justified, makes this a worthy piece of art for the ages.
Absolutely masterful. It would be great to do as a monologue at your high school talent show, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We could, I bet if somebody were to do that monologue, it would beat any other performance. Even if somebody was doing Cat Scratch Fever, that monologue would beat that.
Yeah, that's a definite obvious highlight of the movie.
Yeah.
No, you could tell they knew that was going to be an impactful segment.
Yeah.
Shane was petting a dog, so I felt like I needed to have something too. Listen.
I'm listening.
What did I have to say? No, I can't remember.
Okay, wait. I did have a question. So, Jack Nicholson Joker, that's your top. Oh, no, I know what I was going to say, because you said you've seen all of Willem Dafoe's movies. I'm just curious, what are your other favorite Willem Dafoe movies?
Oh,
Well,
all of the ones you've seen.
I'm gonna jump in, and I'm just gonna say real quick. So I do very vividly remember watching Antichrist with you, Evan. And I remember after the movie, we needed to go outside and take a walk to decompress.
Your reaction to the ultimate, the major scene, was so memorable. I mean, you jumped in your chair. Yeah, I enjoyed both the scene and your reaction to it.
Yeah. If you guys like that, you got to check out the documentary Bob Flanagan's Super Masochist, where a real guy really nails his dick to a board and lets it dangle in the camera.
Yeah, I think I'll be passing on that one.
It's a very intense documentary.
Yeah.
My brother showed me the one where the guy puts the jar up his ass.
That's not a documentary. That's a short.
You know what? Hold on a second, though. Like,
Oscar contender.
what is a documentary, though? Like, that's.
No, well, if you really want to
Talk to him
know,
about it.
I forget, he was born with a disease that most people die at an early age, and he broke all records for surviving with this genetic disease, and he attributes it to his extreme masochism against himself, that was a way that he coped with his body's failing. And besides his involvement in the extreme S&M community, he did a lot of charity work with kids, because he was the guy to have kids meet and be like, see, you're not just going to die like everybody, this guy. And he like goes with an acoustic guitar and sings songs with the kids at camp and stuff, and he was like an inspirational figure, and people didn't really have an explanation for why he lived so long, but he was like, it's because I do this to myself. And just his story of discovering his interest in that and how it's affected his life. And during the making of the documentary, he does eventually die from the disease that like he was the longest living person with. I forget what disease it is, but
And that actually sounds really good. What's it called?
Bob Flanagan's Super Masochist.
Okay. I want to have a maybe a whole show devoted at some point. Oh, yeah, cystic fibrosis. Yeah.
That's it.
I want to have a whole show devoted at some point to this quantitative divide that we have going on, the ranking issue. Because to preview my position on this, which I talk a lot about this in my work. So we have certain scholars who completely forego and eschew all quantitative forms of measurement and analysis. And they think that real research and observation has to be kind of immersive and subjective and interpretive. And I'm very opposed to that perspective, for the simple reason that those people, whether they admit it or not, are ranking things all the time. And I would argue that you implicitly rank things.
Well, yeah, I would not debate that at all. I would just say that to make it quantitative is to take all the nuance out of it. Of course, I'm just saying, if you're going to actually talk about something, especially a work of art of any kind, any quantitation is just throwing any attempt at actually thinking or talking about it critically out the window to make it to the most minute.
Right, but that's right. But that's why we have the whole 2-hour discussion and then the ranking.
A number moot, because you've already said what you have to say about it.
Well, but people who read the reviews sometimes don't have time to listen to the whole 2 hours. And
Are you saying that there are fans of the movie
skip
who skip to the end of the podcast to decide whether they watch to rewatch The Lighthouse because they already saw it 10 years ago?
Yes, and that reminds me, I got a request for all podcast material from a super fan who has requested also that we consider doing a podcast on the movie Lost and Found with David Spade.
Great film.
Sure, I'll take that over the McHale's Navy Down Periscope double feature previously proposed.
All right, well, maybe I'll just watch McHale's Navy and Down Periscope for fun, and then we can do.
we have
If I
plenty of time.
hadn't rewatched them in the past like 5 years, I would totally do it. But having done that and being left with not like an urge to do it again so quickly, I'll do it if that's what we're going to do. But I'm most excited about it. But I'm still desperate to go back to the topic you're avoiding, which is to hear your other favorite Willem Dafoe movies, which I'm sure you actually have. This isn't like a gotcha thing. I'm really curious if you like it, what your other favorites are.
Well, so Antichrist, and I have a hard time remembering. Give me a second.
A really good one I only saw for the first time recently. Let's hear it. Go.
Well, he's a small role, but a great role in American Psycho.
That's right. I'm gonna jump in with American Psycho. So like one thing
one of his best roles. That's pretty low key by Defoe
standards. It is. But I remember noticing his performance when that came out, and that's when when I first started liking him.
So what I've been doing, what I've been doing a lot of these days for in this time of coronavirus or SARS-CoV-2, as the scientists will call it, is watching some YouTube videos, and I came across one about American Psycho, and what I did not realize is that there is the scene when he is interrogating Christian Bale in his office, and I did not realize that Willem Dafoe like played that scene like with 3 different perspectives, like 1 where he knew he was the killer, 2 where he was unsure, and 3 where like he didn't believe so. Then they like edited them together, like they took like different cuts from like different from his different portrayals, and they put it into that one scene, and I did not realize that.
That's that's because the technique shouldn't foreground itself in good filmmaking. That's a good movie.
Yeah,
you just feel the effect without noticing the method.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are we going to talk about the foreskin reference in the Lighthouse?
Yeah. So the foreskin reference, where this was near the end of it, when Robert Pattinson is complaining, or Ephraim Winslow, potentially, maybe that's who he is, if that is his real name, is complaining about the odor, the persistent odor of Thomas, the lighthouse keeper. And I believe that he talked about, he used foreskin as unclean foreskin as a way of describing the odor of Thomas. Actually, a way of describing one of the layers of his foul odor.
Mm-hmm. And jism too. You smell like jism.
Because that's what's in there. If you don't clean it, that's what's in there. The jism.
Yeah, I think schmegma is the.
That's a DeFoe-esque pronunciation. I would just say smegma because I don't think there's an H, but I kind of like schmegma better. It captures the spirit of it.
Oh, this is actually a learning experience. I would have, if you were to say, Michael, what do you call the stuff that will accumulate in foreskin if it's not properly cleaned? I would say schmegma.
Yeah, I would wager. I'm not 100% sure, but I would wager a large sum that there's no H. It's just SMEGMA.
I think you are right about that, actually, because I think that I
honestly prefer your, the flair of pronouncing it that way.
It's like the time when we were at Blues Camp and Shane on camera recounted the time that so this is a good long story. Mike packed a very small bag to go to Blues Camp for a week. It was a small novelty Wisconsin Badgers duffel bag with like it had some like Twinkies and Ho-Hos and then a plastic meat cleaver.
Yeah.
True. All of this is true.
This is true. And Mike brought it, and I don't know what it was. You were really proud of that thing. You were coveting. It was just sort of a protected thing.
Several toys. I remember toy guns that trip too.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it was a fun. It was a fun, like, it was comical.
Sure. Just Why wouldn't you want to have that at Blues Camp? And we were bickering, as we often did, and I was, of course, a menace in those days. And I took the meat cleaver and drew a small swastika to indicate that you were not. And Nick, the ultimate instigator, was filming all of this, and he filmed Shane, who was in the room, and asked Shane
a description of what happened. Yeah.
And Shane said Evan took Mike's meat cleaver and he drew a swastika.
Yeah.
Was that a deliberate mispronunciation on his part?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I want to mention too, I was actually quite furious about that happening, and I think that I was 100% unequivocally in the right for being upset about that.
I mean, for all the moments you were upset during Blues Camp, you were in the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to ever go so far as to claim that I was in any way ethical or
justified in torturing your friends.
Boredom's a bitch.
Yeah, doldrums.
Yeah, that's right. Doldrums. I think I have to say it was actually my fault for that, because it was I who killed the albatross.
I knew it.
Yes, and that is why we had all of the boredom there.
I don't get it.
Jeez, you don't get it?
Watch the movie. I think, yeah, there were scenes in Blues Camp that are reminiscent of the Lighthouse.
That's what I think about. Any young man has had a microcosm experience of what is writ large with the Lighthouse, which is being cooped up with other men for longer than you would naturally choose to be together, and just the 2-person to 3-person micro Lord of the Flies that results from that.
That's exactly
rage, stench, and mess that accumulates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and Shane and Mike in a small room, like a 6x8 room, a dorm room in West.
I had the cot, by the way.
Shane had cot.
Yeah, you were Robert Pattinson.
I was definitely,
It was in Elkins, West Virginia. And it was summer. It was very hot. Very hot.
Well, so a couple of things that have to do with odor is that one thing that I do not recall is I do not recall the frequency with which I was showering at that particular time. And the reason being is that I did not have any sort of like slippers to go into the public shower. And I think at the time I was worried that of getting like meningitis from the showers.
Is that actually how one gets meningitis? I don't.
Isn't that a spinal?
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert, but I know.
Yeah, probably not. But a lot of my my OCD contamination fears are not exactly grounded in science.
Well, I mean, and it's also reasonable not to shower in the summer because that's the prime time for harvesting the schmegma. Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to. So just the first Google result, southernnews.org.
Get all my.
And it says, yeah, and it says here, why is meningitis such a risk to college students? Simply, college students live a close-knit lifestyle. They share drinking glasses and utensils. Some dorm buildings at Southern have 3 students to 1 bedroom. Communal showers and bathrooms also increase the risk.
There you go. So Mike knows best. Dr. Mike knows.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it says when using communal showers, students should always use discretion about dirty showers and wear shower flip-flops.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the only time I got athlete's foot was there was an indoor water park in Belgium that was off season, and they had one of those wading pools that you'd go through to clean your feet off, but it was a cesspool. I'm always very wary about being barefoot in public showers, especially.
Well, no, those Belgians.
That's good.
And Belgian ones, yeah. I got a Belgian disease on my feet, and it was on tour too, so everyone got a nice whiff of my
tour is definitely
feet.
A Lighthouse situation.
Yes, absolutely.
To tour is Lighthouse on wheels.
Moving Lighthouse.
So here's the question: do you think that? I talk about like the Bob Seger On the Road song, such a whole thing. Do you think that this movie, The Lighthouse, is really about rock and roll bands touring?
Yeah, you make a good point.
Most things are. That's kind of like what the Bible originated from and what the Quran originated from.
Jesus was on tour.
That's how you spread the gospel. The gospel, spreading the gospels was God on tour.
Yeah, you read his books, but you don't hear his music that was behind it.
That's, why I've never been converted, because the original music, it's just not as good as the first wave rock and roll that Jesus was doing.
Yeah, but you know what? Like if you see the crowd,
I wanted to bring up, and this is something I've discussed with Shane. Willem Dafoe performance I only discovered recently. I was late to, much like Evan was late to the Lighthouse party, I was late to the Dog Eat Dog party, which also involves pornography and masturbation and Willem Dafoe. So if you haven't seen Dog Eat Dog, check it out. Peak Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
And related to David Spade movies, I also recently watched Light Sleeper, another Paul Schrader Willem Dafoe movie, which is a very different kind of Willem Dafoe performance, where he is a cocaine dealer, and David Spade, for one cameo scene, plays a guy buying cocaine from him who's way too talkative and annoying, and it's very funny.
That is funny. To answer your question, I also like the Boondock Saints character.
I should have guessed.
Yeah, whatever the most well-known.
When's the last time you rewatched it?
It's been a long time, probably like college.
And you enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Like legitimately? I don't remember ever liking it.
Shane, I
I
had bad
remember
taste.
understanding the draw of it. I remember being like, I should see that. But then just it kind of felt like, like I imagine the way animals feel when there's like bait in a trap and you're kind of like, I can see why this is supposed to be for me, but I also know it's bad and I should stay away.
Overnight definitely cemented what I felt about the filmmaker watching the movie. Did you ever see the documentary about the man who made it?
I've seen it.
Yes.
No.
It's great how he completely torpedoed this like blank check that I think it was Miramax had given him. Or whatever, like they plucked this guy out of obscurity and he made all these demands like, I want my metal band to do the score. I'm going to write, direct, and
Was
edit.
it Evan?
Yeah, exactly. And like seriously, he made all these demands and he had just this gigantic ego and he burned all his bridges. Why he never made another movie.
I mean, yeah, that sounds interesting. I will have to check that out.
It's more interesting to me than Boondock Saints.
Yeah, no, it was interesting too because there were a lot of scenes in there of him like at a bar talking to friends or whatever, talking about his ideas, and the people that he's talking to are like, yeah,
yeah, exactly. How he just like talked over everybody and then just like bowled them over with his his movie ideas to the point where they just acquiesced like, okay,
yeah.
But everyone was his best bud, He brought all his friends along for the ride. His metal band was going to be big Hollywood soundtrack composers.
Yeah. And now Norman Reedus is making that sweet Walking Dead money.
He walked away unscathed. I don't know if anybody else, Willem Dafoe excluded, and I guess Billy Connolly, that
Aren't
did
those
anything.
the 3 leads?
Well, there's the other guy. I don't remember. There's like the 2 other there's the 3 guys, and of the 3, the Norman Reedus is the only one who went on to do anything.
Yeah.
Which Sean Patrick Flannery, I think is the other one. Is the other Saint?
I don't. What has he done?
I don't know. I don't think it's done anything.
Yeah.
Really.
But you know his name. You know his name.
Sure do.
Big Boondock Saints fan.
Wow. Well, I've seen both of the Boondock Saints movies.
I didn't see the sequel. What was it?
Yeah. I remember very, very little about it, except that Willem Dafoe has a cameo at the very end of it. And it's basically the exact same thing, except that the Willem Dafoe detective character is like a Southern woman.
Oh, what?
And it's like kind of the same.
I see. They're swapped him out for a different character entirely.
Yeah.
So guys, speaking of my playing annoying guitar, I wanted to share with you what Santa brought for me this year, which is this device will create 30 of me at one time.
Oh,
so,
no. Is that a loop?
Yes, it's a multi-track loop station.
Oh, that's a Ditto X4. Yeah, I've heard about those. TC Electronic is just.
On Mike's recommendation, I actually decided to go with a used TC Electronic Ditto X4, and it's got 2 loop stations, each with I believe you can record 16 tracks on each loop. So that's 32 guitars, all coming from my amp.
So I need to ask you a serious question here, Evan. Let's say you're coronavirus is done, so you're at the local theater waiting for Eric Johnson or Joe Satriani or
I like this hypothetical.
Yeah, whatever coming up, and you're there by yourself eating your popcorn, sipping on your Coke, and you're waiting, and then you hear a couple people talking like a couple rows behind you, and they're like, yeah, I just got the Ditto X3, and I just it's one of the best things I ever got. Or a conversation like that, would you then proactively insert yourself into the conversation to talk shop about equipment?
No,
you would not.
You think I'm like a buoyant, outgoing? I mean, I am outgoing, but first of all, well, I have so many ways I want to answer this, and it's which disgusting version of me do I want to bring out here? I'll be honest and say if it was a male, absolutely not. It begs the question of how could it not be a male? I don't give a shit, like, especially at a venue like that, like at an Eric Johnson or Joe Satriani concert, which is something I've been to many of those. Listening to the guy, other fans talk just makes me feel gross.
Those are your people. Those are your
I know.
comrades.
That's why I feel self-conscious. It's like, oh, well, that's how I am.
Yeah, well,
No, I don't want to share that smegma with them.
yeah, you would not. But there's nothing, and there's nothing that they could say that would like unintentionally bait you into the conversation.
Well, I don't give a shit about that. I don't even know. I don't know. I really am not that educated about guitar stuff anymore. Like,
Yeah, but what if the conversation was something like, listen, note for note, Joe Satriani is better than Eric Johnson.
I
will say, one time, some of you may know this story, at a They Might Be Giants concert that I went to by myself in Madison, I was getting a soda at the bar, and I overheard a woman talking to her friends, just like amongst her group of friends, claiming to be the biggest They Might Be Giants fan.
Oh no.
Oh no! I interjected to propose a trivia showdown, which we then did, and neither of us could answer either of our other questions. I ended up being friends with her for quite a while. She was a very nice lady. She moved to Buenos Aires the next year, but so that's the boldest I've ever been.
You made a friend. I was going to ask. You said, would you enter into that conversation about gear? Have you entered into any conversations at an Eric Johnson show with anyone else there?
Yeah, see, like I'm just thinking of all the ones I was at and the way, like those conversations do happen, and I just my reaction to them is internally is always like, I don't want anything to do with this.
Right. I actively avoid talking to anyone at those shows.
Now, maybe to answer your question honestly, Mike, if I'm thinking about it, what the kind of thing that would incite me to participate and interject would be if somebody started making claims about the rankings of Eric Johnson's songs and albums. But seriously, if somebody was like, dude, bro, like the best Eric Johnson is like Blue, then I'd be like, explain that. Like, you need to tell me why you just said that.
Yeah, I want to know who that person is, honestly.
What's your address?
Yeah.
Piece of shit.
Yeah. No, that's
I want to ask, because Mike said, when Evan held it up, Mike's identified the piece of gear. Is this actually a piece of gear you're familiar with, Mike? And if so, in what context do you use a looping pedal?
Mike pulled a fast one on Adam.
No, I'm completely unfamiliar with it. I did the same trick that Kaiser Soze did in The Usual Suspects.
Which is
where we're taking like the name of the whiteboard and like using that.
Oh, you read it as Evan held it up. Well, yeah. You should be an actor, because I believed it.
Yeah,
I was really intrigued and just waiting for Evan to shut up to hear what Mike does with loop pedal.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you about the Eric Johnson. What inspired that is I saw Eric Johnson 2012, Eric Johnson at the Neptune Theater in Seattle. And like waiting for the show before it started, there were like two guys next to me, and they were like, all right, top 3 guitar players of all time. Who do you got? Jimi Hendrix, and like that was the conversation that they were having.
You're saying that as someone that does a podcast where you just rank things, and you're like, other people ranking things, that's stupid, I hate it.
I'm just stating an observation and what inspired that. I mean, I will note like it's kind of a funny thing that Evan brought up is that those are the conversations. Those types of conversations are like the bread and butter of how I communicate with other people. And yet, when I hear somebody else having one of those prompts, I like kind of cringe a little bit.
Another way I've interjected in strangers, which is usually before a movie screening, especially at a revival theater, is when I hear people having a conversation where one of them can't remember the name of an actor or a title, and they're just struggling to remember it, and I know it. I've been like, I just like go back and tell them, interject, eavesdrop another conversation, because it's so frustrating to hear someone like not remember something where you're 2 feet away and you're like, just okay, that's what it is. Okay, continue.
You got a
well, so you're the what's the I'm drawing a blank on the name, but like with the Kevin McDonald.
Oh yeah, Citizen Kane, the
Exactly.
Kids in the Hall sketch.
Yeah.
Citizen Kane. You're talking about Citizen Kane.
But it'd be like if that was happening, but neither of them remembered it was Citizen Kane. Like two people not remembering Citizen Kane. I'm a guy at another table. It's like it's Citizen Kane.
This whole conversation has reminded me. So I'm not trying to toot Mike's horn here at all. I mean, I love Mike. You know, he's my best friend. But Mike, you have a unique brand of humor, as you know, and that's we all love it. Mike did something recently that I registered in my head might have been the funniest thing. I don't think it's the funniest thing you've ever done, but it's definitely up there. And I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about.
So is it like, it's not the funniest thing, it's the coolest thing?
No, but it's like in the top 5 funniest Mike moments if we're gonna rank them. I mean, via text, right? I mean, the texts don't compete with the in-person and video shit, but like it was one of the funniest texts I've ever got from Mike. And it was so funny that I shared it with somebody who also like lost their shit. But it was I can't even describe it. You sent me a text that just was a picture of you, and then underneath it simply said, "C'est la vie." And it was the funniest fucking thing I had seen since the pandemic. And I can't explain why it's so funny, but like I sent it to my brothers and my brother's girlfriend, who are big fans of that. And yes, it was like speechless. So anyway, good work.
Well, I can tell you my thought process behind that is so believe it or not, I'm going to tie this back into the Lighthouse for a second eventually. Is the facial expression that I was going for was like, if something like a minor inconvenience, but something that would still like kind of cause you to feel some rage, if that occurred, but then you kind of have your overall perspective then kicks in and you're like, you know what? Don't cry over spilled milk. C'est la vie. Like that's the kind of like the facial expression I was going for. Like something happened and I was annoyed by it, but then I decided to let it go. And I was trying to capture the moment of when I, hypothetically speaking, decided to let it go. And I will tell you, the reason that this goes back to the Lighthouse is it took me a while to actually get the facial expression that I wanted on that one. And which gets me to like, Robert Pattinson at the very end of the Lighthouse, when he like finally sees the inside. I thought he was able to capture that well. So like that type of acting I've developed an appreciation for. But to the point, that was the idea and the thought process behind it, which
I don't
at the moment I would just
I really enjoyed this like VH1 behind the music for a Mike text.
Yeah, it's like
ongoing series.
Yeah. You want to get a?
Are you gonna show us?
You
gotta make a sound so it makes you the big screen.
Yeah, you gotta talk, Evan.
I gotta talk? Oh, here we go. Yeah. Can you see this text? This is
It's perfect.
There's something about that. I've never seen you make a face like that. And it looks like straight out of like a piece of promotional material. There's a slight hint of rage.
It's sublime. It captures both spectrums of the emotions.
Anyway.
When Michelangelo was doing his
that will be in our Sistine Chapel. The Mike they love you.
Does this brown dog just always lay? It doesn't get bored?
This is kind of abnormal.
Look at this.
The dogs are excited Shane is here, so where they like to be around Shane, so that's part of it.
He's my buddy.
I can't believe Momo is not. Oh, she's right there. Momo's out of frame, but suffice to say, she's within arm's reach.
Yeah,
but that's a pretty low key dog that it's been 2 hours. She's just sitting there.
Yeah, that's how good we are at podcasting. It lulls even animals who don't speak English into the slumber.
Honestly, like if I had to describe our podcast in one word, it would be boring.
Exactly. That is quintessential podcast. I don't know how many podcasts you listen to. They're all boring. That's the emotion that they're going for. interesting podcasts are too engaging. You're like, oh, I gotta like pay attention. I don't want to listen to this.
You want a nice, boring morning podcast for your cup of coffee.
100%.
Yeah. Have a little sip.
I'm very curious. Do you guys, I have brought up on several times podcasts I listen to. Do you, and I've talked about it with Shane today, do you or Mike have podcasts you listen to regularly? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, so I have two podcasts that I listen to regularly. One of them is, this is exciting stuff. One of them is the Osterholm update, COVID-19, with Michael Osterholm, who is an epidemiologist from the University of Minnesota. And every week he just gives a COVID-19 update. And it's just like 1 hour of, dry stuff. And one that I haven't been listening to as much recently, but I was getting into was QAnon Anonymous. And
okay.
do a bi-weekly, twice a week, deep dive into the world of QAnon.
That stuff is fascinating.
That's Shane's
department. That's actually, so yeah, QAnon Anonymous. If you're not familiar with that podcast and you're generally interested in that, I would.
Their whole world is blowing up now that Trump lost, isn't it? That kind of just throws the whole theories like people must be having a crisis.
Oh, I'm sure they are. Sure they are. Yeah.
Because it was all dependent on him being this puppet master behind the scenes, which is hilarious.
It's not certain that he lost, guys.
That's right. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
And how about you, Evan? Do you have any podcasts you listen to?
I was just looking. Yeah, I don't listen to many, and they're not. You're gonna make fun of me, but
you made fun of me, so don't worry about it.
NPR News Now, NPR Politics.
Oh my God, that is so much worse than anything.
Planet Money. There's a podcast called Limited Resources, which is about Magic the Gathering, and Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History, along with Michael Lewis Against the Rules.
What is that? That sounds good.
Yeah, it's from the Malcolm Gladwell network of shit. So it's like,
doesn't answer my question. What is it about? What is the topic?
It's like revisionist history. They're like stories that reviewed in a different way, like historical moments, or I'm trying to find the last episode I listened to. Against the Rules presents Deep Cover. Deep Cover, the drug wars.
Is Mike doing something funny? His video isn't up, and is that your audio, or is Mike up to something?
Yeah, Mike disappeared.
We lost Mike.
I'm back. I had to take a quick restroom break.
Why did you mute your video?
What's that?
Why did you mute your video? Usually we get to look at the empty space behind you.
Oh, that's a good question. I did not. I did not. So what I missed, because Evan was talking about the podcast he was listening.
I haven't said a bunch of podcasts as you know, never heard. Sorry.
Wait, so podcasts. So Adam, you still listen to the Joe Rogan Experience?
Or Adam Carolla? Adam Carolla, Joe Rogan, Glenn Beck. That's all you need. Those are the guys. You're right. And what else? I really love CNN newscast.
Mainly the food reviews.
Yeah.
BBC News, New York Times, okay, Wall Street Journal,
NASDAQ, Dow Jones.
Yeah.
I had something to say. I remember what I was going to say about when everyone was talking about Jack Nicholson Joker. I don't think I have meant to bring up the new Joker movie several times on our podcast. I just want a real flash reaction, especially in the context of Evan's opinion about the Jack Nicholson Joker. Evan, what did you think about the Joaquin Phoenix Joker?
Okay, first of all, pause. The Joaquin, I'm gonna get you.
How? I just want to know. I honestly am curious. We haven't ever talked about it.
We started this podcast with discussing Adam's, belittling me for being
I
so
just honestly
slow,
I honestly
so
want
slow to watch The Lighthouse, which we established came out 14 months ago. And now you're asking me to talk about the new Joker, which is, I believe, 24 months old. So it's not really new if you're going to call me grandpa for being late to the game on The Lighthouse. Just want to get that out of the way. Second,
I'm just saying we haven't talked about it.
yeah, no, don't avoid you.
I don't even understand what you're trying to accuse.
Your conception of time is arbitrary.
I'm not saying it's new. I'm specifically saying it's been a long time and somehow it's never come up to discuss.
I feel like
Also,
it has.
Entirely about the Joker.
So here's a funny story about the Joker and Evan's dumb, out of touch moviness. I saw the Joker in the theater because and I was talking to a friend who was visiting. It happens to be the same friend who I was discussing or I co-watched The Lighthouse with. And I told her, she's like, we were talking about movies, and I said, yeah, I just saw the Joker movie, it was all right. And she's like, gives me this disgusted look, like, I just don't want to see that movie because it's like empowering the whole incel community, which that went totally over my head. And I remember like being like aghast, like, what about that movie is incel? I don't get it. Well, how is he an incel? And she explained to me this and that. So that was a funny discussion. I saw it. I mean, like, put it this way, like, I didn't hate it. I probably won't watch it again. I like Joaquin Phoenix. I thought he did a good job.
Sure. That movie would be nothing if he wasn't in it. I don't think it would have been.
I totally agree. Like his performance made it enjoyable. I have not had the urge to like revisit it.
So if you were taken aback by her saying it was an incel movie, what did you, prior to that discussion, what would you have said the themes of the movie were?
Well, I don't, yeah, I mean, I understand why people go there, but like, this is a guy who's a societal reject. He's someone who's been just completely shoved into the sewer and forgotten and neglected. That's the broader takeaway I got. Not so much.
And you don't think that's how incels feel?
This is classic. This is classic Adam. Like, this is yes, it is how incels feel. That does not imply that the Joker is an incel. His like sexual conquests and failures have nothing to do. There's like the one little bit of interaction
with his neighbor.
That's such a small part of the movie.
I would love to do a stopwatch.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Okay, so I've only seen it once.
Well, for arguments aside, I didn't take that from the movie at all. I don't think his horniness or inability to get sex has really anything to do with the movie.
It was certainly not the totality of the movie, but it was I did not like, I hated the movie. It was highly objectionable, but I think he's great in it. Yeah. And that is, I don't care about it being an incel movie. I just think it's a real.
Well, where I'm coming from, like my position that's underlying this is that the people who point out stuff like that are so rabid and sensitive to any little piece of static that they will scream at anything that they find remotely offensive. And it's gotten to the point where it's just ridiculous and not to be taken seriously. And
absolutely. And I will furthermore tell you that is one of the major points of satire in Charlie Coffin's book Antkind. And most people that make fun of that are kind of people where you're like, I agree, but you're kind of going about it in a way that makes you seem like an idiot. But I think Charlie Kaufman's satire of, cancel culture is because it's written from the first person perspective of a white male attempting to join in on that in a really pathetic way. And
that would be me.
800-page Charlie Kaufman novel for the podcast.
Definitely next in line.
But what was I going to say about Joker? I forget.
Mike, did you see it?
In terms of broader themes, I mean, I remember that. I mean, like the broader theme broader theme that seemed to be, trauma, childhood trauma, and how that, like,
Now, if
Definitely
you
a
want to
theme
talk
in the
about
movie.
the amount of running time devoted to that, it's way smaller than his amazing relationship with.
But to build on what Mike's saying, I think for the biggest take, like I do think the movie had a social statement, an important social statement, and that was around mental health.
Yeah.
This was a archetypal example of a mental health sufferer who is unable to get help and therefore becomes a villainous character of some sort, although it seems weird to call it villainous.
So you think the message is there should be more funding and attention paid to getting.
Yes. In a nutshell, yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think threw a lot of current themes at the wall to see what would stick.
Yeah.
I saw the movie as cynical in that way because it had classism issues, but they played both sides of the political spectrum. I think it was just trying to have the widest appeal in seeming to have grander social themes.
I'll never forget a chat I had with a younger coworker at a place I worked where he said he really liked it. And I was like, what did you like about it? I didn't really like it, but I'm curious to hear what made you like it. And he told me he'd never seen a movie where the protagonist was just like that, like it started not good for the protagonist or just got worse, and that it was kind of an anti-hero. And I of course flipped every table in the room and literally abandoned the work I was supposed to be doing to write a chronological list of like 50 movies that fit that description that were better.
Well, you just said he was young.
Very overtly referenced in the movie in the most dunderheaded fashion imaginable.
I don't get why you expect everybody else to be, like Outlaw Vern. It's like you bump into people.
I just want to help them.
But like
I'm here to help.
Taxi Driver is so directly referenced by the movie, and it is a popular enough movie where most people.
And the guy had not seen Taxi Driver. He had not seen King of Comedy.
But Joker is not good like Taxi Driver,
Exactly.
Not at all.
But if you've never seen it,
right.
it gets to ride the vapors of the coattails.
I'm just saying, you can tell him, hey, you should watch Taxi Driver. You don't have to rip his head off. Like we can't all be experts.
I'll tell you what. He thanked me, and he was like, "This is really great." That is my preferred interaction with 20-year-olds.
I sympathize with this young man because I got my head ripped off for watching The Lighthouse 13 months after it came out.
If you think some light ribbing constitutes getting your head ripped off, you should ask anyone you bullied in the first 30 years.
I'm always getting bullied in this show,
Oh, but wait. The last salient point that I want to bring up directly related to Joker and incels is I was just talking with Shane about one of my favorite podcasts, The Projection Booth, had an episode on the movie Brazil. Have you guys seen the movie Brazil?
Oh, yeah. Love it.
And they were revisiting it now, and they said that it's striking that Brazil is definitely an incel movie, and that like people like me, and I imagine Shane and other people, like when you watch it as a teen, you identify with Sam Lowry and you're like, yeah, I'm the creative guy who's suppressed by the workplace and whatever. But then you watch it now and he is 100% a pathetic incel who has even more elaborate imagined fantasies than the Joker. And in the end, it's like he just fucks everybody's life up and he is the villain of the movie, but doesn't even know it.
What you just said cranked my mischief wheel and made me this whole conversation, and now thinking about what you just said of us identifying as teens and Brazil and the Joker is making me think about one particular individual who I think of as the classic incel. Because now note, and this is a good friend of all of ours, former friend in my case, and I haven't interacted with this individual in 10 years. So he's by definition now not an incel, given recent developments in his life. However,
really
in the college days, this is the classic incel. This is what I think of. Who could it not be? You know who I'm talking about, right?
No, I'm desperately trying to guess. How did we know them?
I don't think any of you would, or Mike maybe, but that you two wouldn't think of this because you've interacted with him since he's like gotten laid. But in the college days, Turco was
of course.
Classic. He would say verbatim, like, I am very interesting and artistic, and why do these girls like these other guys? It doesn't make any sense.
Not having that self-awareness.
I don't feel bad about this, by the way, because he ain't never gonna listen to this shit. So let's just not tell him that I said it. And hey, it's a fairy tale with a happy ending. This gentleman happens to have, found love and consummated that.
Damn it.
I'm making Shane uncomfortable.
Well, what
He's never gonna podcast again.
No, we don't want that. Fire me. Keep Shane.
But yeah, I was really struck by remembering Brazil and recontextualizing my own experience with it, because and then the question became was that on purpose, or is Terry Gilliam an incel and he doesn't realize he's making incendiary incel enablement porn?
Well, I mean, this
archetype was kind of romantic before, this hopeless romantic who's
because so much great art has been made by incels who had to channel their lack of sexual release into their art.
Van Gogh.
Yeah,
I don't, it.
I'll have to rewatch Brazil now that through that particular lens, and I just need to make an obligatory reference to Tideland as long as we're talking about Terry Gilliam.
What about it? You just want to say it?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that that's a movie that exists.
It's a weird one.
I believe, if memory serves, my first time seeing Brazil was when Shane brought it over to our house and slept over, because you had.
You guys watch Brazil?
I think so. You had the special DVD.
I did. I got the Criterion for sure.
Back when DVDs were still the thing too, and I remember it was even a thing. Nick was like, "Dude, Shane's sleeping over on Friday. He's bringing Brazil."
My DVD collection at the time was a crown jewel of mine in a very embarrassing way.
Shane had legendary.
Am I the incel?
Well, what I was going to say is the point about Brazil is you could make an incel movie and still have it be a movie I would have said is one of my favorite movies up until now. That is not an indictment of a movie. So exactly agreeing with Evan what you said about your friend, which is even if it is, that's not what makes Joker a movie I don't like. You can make an incel movie and I'm great movie, great job.
Yeah, those elements are not the objectionable elements. I think
I don't understand. I mean, and again, I might be just ignorant about the whole grievance, but this whole conversation is sort of reminding me okay, yeah, what we're calling an incel, a frustrated, unloved, unsatisfied, usually male character who is unable to secure, love. That's a very broad and commonplace theme.
I would say to be an incel, it has to be on the level that it is in Joker is more archetypal than Brazil, because in Joker he really is a hermit in his house with pretty much no social awkwardness, to the point of exclusion, right. To the point where they have their own imagined stuff. In Brazil, he has all his imagined stuff, but he does have other human relationships. So he isn't really as pure.
But we have to finish the argument. So in order for it to be negatively incel, it has to be a movie that somehow empowers or glorifies an incel-like character or their behavior, right? Otherwise, why is it even a complaint? Otherwise, okay, it's a movie about an incel.
Okay. I'm saying that's exactly what I just said.
Right.
Brazil is almost as much of an incel fantasy as Joker.
I know. I'm not arguing with you. I'm trying to figure out what these people's argument is about the Joker.
I think they would say
I recognize this and I don't like it. Make it go away forever.
I think they would say it glorifies.
Okay. Then they're stupid, because that movie isn't trying to tell you hey, you should be like the Joker. Look how great and cool he is, right? It's the demise of an individual, right?
Well,
it culminates in a very
as popular as ever, and both Brazil and Joker, it's martyrdom. It's not that they success, not that they win or the champion, but you're supposed to feel pathos and identify with their failure, because you were also a failure, and be you know what? Maybe it's good that I'm a failure. Maybe that I learn more from my suffering.
Yeah. Got that. I got that. All right. So we've laid out the argument, and I've even seen, so I don't know if some of you know this, I follow incel memes on Instagram because I think this is a fascinating, horrific, but like you can't turn away kind of phenomenon amongst a very small fringe group of men. And I've seen the Joker movie imagery used with those kinds of memes that are directly made to empower, like, yeah, you know, a lion don't need no queen or whatever the fuck, you know, whatever it is. And I think this is the funniest shit ever. I've shared it with nobody else seems to enjoy it with me, but I sent it to you guys. But anyway, to me, it seems absolutely ludicrous to watch a movie with Robert De Niro and Joaquin Phoenix that was made obviously for a wide audience and reduce it to that.
I mean,
right?
It's a pretty reductive movie, but I understand and agree. I agree with you overall, but just because it's a big Hollywood movie with stars in it does not mean it could have a myopic focus.
But it's just quite obviously not about that.
No,
you know,
that's like one facet of its theme of like this oppressed guy's struggles.
All right. Well, I had a bee in my bonnet, and you know, I don't think it's empowering incels. I mean, those stupid guys who make those memes are going to take anything and run with it. You know,
Yeah,
like
they thought the Venom movie was empowering.
It's definitely a failure as incel empowerment because I think it was more recognized by people that were angry about it as incel empowerment than incels were empowered by it.
Yeah.
Unlike exactly what I'm saying about Brazil is I've loved Brazil my entire life without recognizing that now. Thinking about it that way, Brazil is almost as much incel, and that is the same kind of martyrdom empowerment, but nonetheless, fantasy about like, to be, you know, it's nobler to want and fail than to be a normal human that functions in society.
I guess I'm making a broader comment that these people who want to point out injustice and, dangerous, destructive incel influences need to be a little bit more intelligent about their targets, because when you direct everybody's attention to something like that, I mean, that's why I reacted. It's like, really? That's what you're going to pick? There are other things that really are incel that you should focus on and get rid of and resist. This is it's a Joaquin Phoenix movie. Anyway.
Yeah, I would agree that the target is wrong. The target is, of course, the human race, which is fundamentally evil, and we should all be stopping procreation. That's the logical thing that people should be realizing, rather than who cares about incels? We should just not have people. Mm-hmm. Would you agree to that?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Agreed.
I would certainly agree we should not have certain kinds of people. We should direct the gene pool more intelligently. But
I mean, yeah, I agree. We should direct it to oblivion. Like, what would you say we should direct it towards?
You do not really think that. It's sort of like the rankings.
You really don't think
I have these discussions with people all the time.
I've never believed something more purely and more furtively.
I don't believe that. All of your behavior. Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, Adam, are you saying that your preferred Earth has no humans?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
no behavior indicates that
has that opinion.
I want to hear what Evan said. What did Evan say?
I said none of your behavior indicates that you actually have that belief.
How so? I have a vasectomy. I'm not contributing to the human species.
That's a very different thing than saying that you think the right end for humanity is oblivion. That's your personal preference.
I'm not saying that like everyone alive now should die. I'm not committing suicide. I'm not killing people. I just don't need any more of this. I think we've had our fun.
Okay.
Didn't go well. I think we can all agree it's not really going. The human experiment is not really going well.
I can disagree more. On what measurable dimension would you say that? And compared to when?
Before people.
Okay, well, what's good about before people? Like, what's good about that era?
That there weren't people.
There's no plastic.
No, but why is that good?
I would say man's conquest of nature is, I would say the organization of the strat. I would say civilization. I would say actually people could be okay. I think people coexisting on an equal level with everything else on the planet, that's fine. I think it's civilization that has risen out of the organization of society, and agriculture and the needs of the volume and density of people is what creates a problem. I think that you are right. It doesn't need to be zero. I just don't foresee a way to get back there that isn't zero.
Wait.
I just think that it's I think there's too many people, and I don't think there's going to be a easy way to get back to a level of people that coexists with anything else on the planet. I think we're on a...
Okay, so what you're saying now is that you think humanity would be fine if it were sustainable, but it's not currently.
But I don't think we would ever get back there. I think that there's an evolution of people leads to non-sustainable population density.
But the evidence doesn't bear that out.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, I'm asking you, like, what's the dimension of sustainability here, right? Is it the ability of
in my perfect world, once you get to group living structures, that's a bit much.
Yeah, well,
you have shelter, animals have shelter, but once you get to like a group level, of people constructing large scale towns and things like that, that's too much. That's a bit.
The towns produce the things that make life sustainable is kind of what I don't think.
Exactly. It's exactly that, where it is it's an aggravating feedback loop, which has led to what we have now.
Well, it's way too enormous of a debate. I strongly disagree with you, but simply because I don't think, I agree there are definitely elements of our current situation that don't appear to be sustainable. However, in terms of like overall quality of life, I don't know that you could find a dimension on which we haven't improved, particularly over the last 50 to 100 years.
How about mental health?
Mental health is the one. That's exactly right, and that is a huge paradox, right? I mean, like, I think about that all the time.
Because as always, I firmly agree with the Unabomber's condensation of technological society, which is human brains aren't meant to deal with free time. That's where people get neurotic, is they have their brain is just spiraling out of control because it doesn't have to provide for itself.
I agree with that on person.
That was something too.
So that is the level where if human society got back to a level where most of our time was spent surviving, so people didn't lose their minds and yield everything we have now, that was what I would say is sustainable. And I don't foresee it happening, that isn't just total loss of the human civilization.
But if you have all that free time, then something that like the Lighthouse would happen, like that type of dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, you have to ask: is it worth it?
A couple of observations. One is that I don't, it's a movie podcast. I like that we did that. I like that we had this tangent. This is an example of something that Adam and I could argue about for days on end.
Yeah, it'd be great. My blood gets going. I get excited. This is what I'm here for.
It looks great.
Ideas.
I agree about the idle time. I don't think we have come up with a way to handle all the leisure that we've been able to procure for ourselves as a species. I know that from a personal standpoint.
People think that they want it, but it's not actually good for them.
Well, there's a lot of simple solutions to that, though, it seems, right? I mean, you can simply work, right? So, I mean,
sure.
Not like we don't have policy options to deal with this. But anyway.
You're saying labor camps would be the solution. Mandatory labor camps to keep everybody busy.
Maybe. Put me in a labor camp. I need to be there.
Are you running for office? I'll vote for you. Who's the mandatory labor camp guy? I voted for him.
I have thought about running for office. Honestly, guys, my ego.
I would have known from about maybe the first week I knew you that it would be something that would cross your mind in your life.
Yeah, I'm not hiding it. It would be impossible, I think, given that this podcast exists. So,
but that's the thing. Maybe it's like radical, intimacy. Total openness.
Yeah.
thing people are critical about most politicians about they're so duplicitous. If this is all out in the open, then it's very, public information.
I'm giving it to you raw, ladies and gentlemen.
That could be your slogan.
Giving it
Johnson,
to you raw.
giving it to you raw. Sign up for your mandatory labor camps to help your mental health.
Well,
Yeah.
well, gentlemen, we're creeping up on kickoff time for the big Packers game.
Dude, I'm gonna watch this Packers game. Mike, this Packers game doesn't matter though, does it?
It does. No, it does matter. It does
Oh, it
matter.
does? Okay.
It does matter because if the Packers win this game, they're guaranteed the #1 seed and home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and they get a bye for next week.
Can the Bears make the playoffs if they win?
Bears can only make the playoffs if they win this game.
So it's a big game, guys.
So it's a big game here with our boys in green and gold. Fighting on for Wisconsin. So I think we need to give the Lighthouse here our cheeseburger rankings here, and we will start with Shane as our honorary first ranker here.
Well,
Tell them whether it's 4 or 5, which you guys can never get straight amongst yourselves.
It's 4 cheeseburgers. 4 cheeseburgers. On a scale of 1 to 4 cheeseburgers.
Toppings separate from that.
Okay.
It might remind you of how they do it on Cinema at the Cinema. It's totally unrelated.
I would just like to say thank you for having me on. This is a lot of fun to get to be a part of this, and I will, in fact, listen to the back catalog of episodes.
That's legally binding.
And
I hope you have like 10 years.
But I really like this movie. I think it's as good. I think it succeeded or exceeded all of what it set out to do, as far as I can tell. Like as an artistic achievement, as from a non-traditional storytelling element, I would give it 4. Is it 4 tops?
4 is the top.
I'm giving it my highest rating, which is
starting off strong.
It's a very high bar to set. But I think honestly, especially I'm a big horror movie fan, and I found it to be actually unsettling in a unique way from most other horror movies. I would say Robert Eggers and who's the guy who did Hereditary? I forget his name.
Oh man.
Ari Aster.
That and they're kind of contemporaries. I think they even had interviews with one another.
And the same with their second movie, kind of like broadened.
And it was a comedy too.
Absolutely, yes.
Midsummer was a comedy, especially compared to the bleakness of Hereditary.
Yeah.
And I thought The Witch had 0 comedy in it. I thought it was just darkness.
Yeah, that's a very apt comparison.
And all of those movies, I would give for their uniqueness 4 cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
But yeah, going to the highest one, right up there.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. So I don't have anything to add. I also give it I'll give it 4 cheeseburgers, and I think it did have a little bit extra to it. So in the spirit of New England, I'm going to give it 4 cheeseburgers to the side of clam chowder.
Whoa,
nice,
hearty.
Nice.
That's a hearty meal.
Yeah. Adam.
No. Oh, I will say, I'm going to use this time to tell you guys that to ring in the new year, something I am late to in the film watching community. I have joined the website Letterboxd, where one can track one's viewing, and the site is designed for you to rank them when you try to view it. And I actually have to exert extra effort to not rank them when I log that I view them. So if you want to see everything I watch, which for this past week and coming weeks is also what Shane's been watching, you can find me on Letterboxd at my usual username.
All right, chip it a chop.
And there were no ratings. Don't worry, no ratings.
Chip it a chop. Is it my turn?
It sure is.
I first just want to apologize for talking so much. I'm very disgusted with myself for what I've done in this podcast. And
Yeah, he is shame. It's all part of Evan's like shame fetish cycle that he over reveals and then regrets it.
yeah.
But that's
It's
a
beautiful.
fascinating
I love
part.
it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
I see you and talk to you so rarely. It was a true joy to hear you speak.
It was a joy. I'll be honest. I wish we could. Well, I don't wish. I'm going to suggest that we follow through on our original plan to have a little party with the Geppetto movie, so that we can
Dude, absolutely.
so we can hang out.
I anticipate anticipate that to be kind of awkward because of. I think a hangout setting for group video streaming, I predict it will not be as fun as you might imagine it to be. I think the dynamic of a podcast and taking turns talking works out better than hanging out over group video stream. I imagine it kind of being awkward, talking over each other, not talking. I'm still all for it. I just don't expect it to.
Well, I'm just saying we could try.
Our normal hangouts in person.
We could try it.
Oh, I absolutely. I'm for trying it. I will totally do it.
Okay. Oh, easy 4 cheeseburgers. Yeah, I don't have anything new to add. I appreciate that the movie Hereditary was brought up. That's actually the movie I watched before the Lighthouse. Well, before Major Pain, Hereditary. And I've rewatched Hereditary a number of times because it's my favorite. It might be my favorite horror movie.
It's definitely up there.
Yeah, even more than like the classic ones that I like from the 70s and 80s. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Four for me. No clam chowder though, because there might be smegma in it.
I suppose anything is possible. Well, I'm getting a low battery notification from my Macintosh, and so I need to get that plugged in. This concludes another episode of Mike's Movie Podcast featuring Evan with special guests, Adam and Shane. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tune in next week or next time we do a podcast. And you know what? The movies we're reviewing will be to be determined.
Stay tuned.
Hey, Izzy. I see Izzy. Okay.